There's a threshold most people never cross. Not because they're incapable, and not because they haven't done the work. They don't cross it because crossing requires the one thing no one prepares you for: complete release of the need to cross anything at all. This threshold doesn't reward your dedication. It doesn't acknowledge your progress. It opens only when you stop standing at the door. You've been living inside a momentum that told you meaning comes from movement, that stillness equals stagnation, that if you're not actively pursuing, refining, becoming, then you're somehow falling behind. Your entire orientation has been shaped by this invisible current pulling you forward, always forward, towards some future version of yourself that will finally feel complete. But here's what nobody tells you. That current is the very thing preventing arrival. The pursuit itself creates the distance. And the moment you stop expecting anything to change, everything does. This isn't another teaching about letting go. This is about what happens when letting go is no longer something you're trying to do. When the internal machinery that once generated all that seeking simply powers down. Not because you broke it, not because you transcended it, but because it finished its job and walked off the stage. Not everyone reaches this threshold. There's no shame in that statement and no spiritual hierarchy being drawn. Some systems require the structure of pursuit for their entire lifespan. The movement toward understanding, the search for resolution, the quest to refine the self. These aren't obstacles. They're the architecture certain consciousnesses need to navigate reality. And as long as that architecture serves its function, it remains. But for some, there comes a moment when the architecture becomes transparent. You see through the seeking without trying to see through it. You recognize the pattern without needing to break free from it. And in that recognition, something fundamental shifts. The need that was driving everything, the need to become, to arrive, to finally get somewhere, that need simply evaporates. This isn't a graduation. It's a dissolution. The very framework that organized your perception of progress quietly dismantles itself. And you're left standing in something that feels like nothing special, which is precisely why most people miss it entirely. Let me be direct with you. This threshold doesn't announce itself. There's no certificate of completion, no energetic fanfare, no moment where the universe confirms you've made it. Those who cross often don't realize they've crossed until much later, if ever. Because what defines this space is the complete absence of the thing you were using to measure progress in the first place. You were measuring distance to a destination, but the destination was only ever generated by the measuring. Remove the measurement, and there's nowhere to arrive at. Remove the arrival, and there's nothing to seek. Remove the seeking, and what remains is so ordinary, so profoundly unremarkable, that the mind trained to find meaning in striving cannot recognize it as anything significant. This is where most spiritual teachings stop making sense. They tell you to release attachment, but they frame release as a technique that leads somewhere better. They tell you to stop seeking, but that instruction becomes a new form of seeking. They promise you that surrender brings peace, which turns surrender into a transaction. What I'm pointing to here has no transaction attached. It's not a practice that yields results. It's what remains when practice no longer feels necessary. It's the state that emerges when you're no longer tracking your state. It's life without the constant internal monitoring system asking, am I there yet? Am I doing this right? Am I making progress? And here's the paradox that makes this so hard to communicate. You cannot try to stop trying. The moment you make releasing expectation into a goal, you're back in the loop. The moment you seek non-seeking, you're still seeking. This isn't something you can do. It's something that happens when the conditions that require doing are no longer active. For many people, those conditions never deactivate. Seeking continues to serve them. The movement toward understanding gives them structure. The pursuit of growth gives them identity. The constant evaluation of where they stand gives them orientation. None of this is wrong. None of this is inferior. It's simply a different operating system. But for those whose systems are ready to shift, and you'll know if you are, not through thought but through a felt sense of exhaustion with the entire game, the transition happens without effort. One day you notice the internal pressure has lifted. Not because you lifted it, not because you finally figured out how to let go correctly, but because the mechanism generating that pressure completed its cycle and went offline. What follows isn't enlightenment as you've been taught to imagine it. It's not bliss, not cosmic consciousness, not permanent peace. It's something much quieter and far more functional. It's life without the layer of constant self-improvement narration running in the background. It's experience happening without being continuously evaluated against some future ideal. The energetic signature you carry shifts at a fundamental level when this happens. Think about what you've been broadcasting into the quantum field for years, maybe decades. Every morning you wake up with a subtle sense that today needs to be better than yesterday. Every interaction carries the hidden weight of needing to prove something, to yourself, to others, to the universe. Every quiet moment gets interrupted by the question, should I be doing something more productive right now? This creates a specific frequency. It's the frequency of incompleteness, of perpetual becoming, of never quite enough. And the field, being perfectly neutral and responsive, mirrors that frequency back to you in 1,000 different forms. You encounter resistance because you are resistance. You face obstacles because your internal state is oriented toward overcoming. You experience lack because your perceptual filter is tuned to notice what's missing rather than what's present. The seeking state isn't just a mental habit. It's a full-body, full-field orientation. Your nervous system stays slightly activated, always ready for the next challenge, the next opportunity, the next thing you need to handle. Your breathing remains shallow because deep relaxation feels like letting your guard down. Your muscles hold tension patterns that have been there so long you've forgotten they're not natural. Your digestion, your sleep, your immune function, all of it operates under the assumption that you're in a perpetual state of preparation for something that's always about to happen, but never quite arrives. This is the hidden cost of the expectation-driven life. It's not that you fail to manifest what you want. It's that you exist in a constant state of subtle stress that becomes so normalized, you think it's just who you are. You think anxiety is your personality. You think the racing thoughts are your mind. You think the tension is your body. But these are all symptoms of a system organized around the belief that this moment, as it is not sufficient. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase, I release the need to become. Not as a technique, not as a manifestation practice, but as a signal to your own system that you're willing to stop performing for a future that only exists in your anticipation. Let that declaration move through you. Feel what happens when you state it without needing it to produce an outcome. If this transmission is landing, if you're recognizing something here that goes beyond words, tap the like button and subscribe to this channel to anchor into this frequency. Now let's continue. Now let's go deeper into what actually changes when expectation dissolves. Because this isn't about positive thinking or reframing your mindset. This is about a structural reorganization of how you interface with reality itself. In the seeking state, there's always a split. Part of you is living your life, and part of you is watching, evaluating, commenting on whether you're living it correctly. You have a conversation and immediately analyze. Did I say the right thing? Did they perceive me the way I wanted to be perceived? Should I have been more assertive or more receptive? This internal commentary runs almost constantly, creating a layer of separation between you and direct experience. You eat a meal, but you're also thinking about whether this food aligns with your health goals. You exercise, but you're also measuring whether you're pushing hard enough to see results. You rest, but you're also wondering if you're being lazy. You work, but you're also questioning if you're on the right path. Nothing is ever just itself. Everything becomes data in the ongoing project of self-optimization. This split creates exhaustion that most people don't even recognize as exhaustion because it's been their baseline for so long. It's the exhaustion of perpetual self-monitoring, the fatigue of never fully inhabiting any experience because you're always simultaneously experiencing and evaluating the experience. When expectation drops away, this split collapses, not through effort to make it collapse, but through the simple fact that there's no longer anything to evaluate against. You're not trying to become more present. You just notice that presence is already here because you're not being pulled into imagined futures or analyzed pasts. You're not trying to be authentic. You just notice that authenticity emerges naturally when you're not performing for an internal or external audience. The relief of this is profound, but it's not dramatic. It's more like taking off a backpack you've been carrying so long you forgot it was there. Suddenly your shoulders can move freely. Suddenly breathing doesn't require thought. Suddenly walking feels lighter, not because you lost physical weight, but because you dropped the psychological weight of constant self-maintenance. People in this state often report that colors seem brighter, sounds seem clearer, sensations seem more vivid. This isn't because reality changed. It's because the filter of constant evaluation has been removed. You're experiencing things directly instead of through the lens of, what does this mean for my progress? Everything becomes more immediate, more alive, more simply itself. And here's where it gets interesting from a quantum perspective. The observer effect isn't just a laboratory phenomenon. It's happening in your life every moment. The way you observe reality, the expectations you bring, the judgments you overlay, the meanings you impose, literally shapes what you observe. When you're constantly looking for evidence of your progress or lack thereof, you find it. When you're scanning for obstacles, they appear. When you're oriented toward incompleteness, completion remains forever out of reach. But when your observation becomes neutral, when you're no longer looking for anything in particular, no longer trying to extract specific outcomes from your experience, the field responds to that neutrality. Situations that would have triggered you now simply occur and resolve. Interactions that would have required strategic navigation now unfold with organic ease. Opportunities appear not because you're manifesting them, but because you're no longer filtering them out through the narrow lens of your expectations. This is why manifestation teachings often create more frustration than results. They teach you to expect harder, to visualize more clearly, to feel the desired state more intensely. but this just reinforces the split between where you are and where you think you should be. It amplifies the signal of incompleteness, and the field, being a perfect mirror, reflects that incompleteness back to you. What I'm describing is the opposite. This is what happens when you stop broadcasting lack, when you stop asking reality to complete you, when you meet each moment as sufficient without needing it to lead anywhere. The field doesn't reward this shift. Reward implies transaction. The field simply responds to coherence. And there's nothing more coherent than a system that's no longer divided against itself. If this resonates with something you're experiencing, if this video is touching a recognition you can't quite name, then I invite you to subscribe, not just to this channel, but to this frequency. This isn't about consuming more content. This is about joining a space where we're collectively remembering what it feels like to exist without the constant pressure to become something other than what we already are. Subscribe to stay in this conversation. Because the more of us who stop performing for an imaginary future, the more permission we give the world to be exactly as it is. Let's talk about what happens to thought in this space. For most people, thought is the primary organizing force. It plans the future, evaluates the past, maintains continuity of identity. Thought is what tells you who you are and where you're going. It's the narrative voice giving meaning to experience. In the seeking state, thought runs almost constantly. It's commenting, interpreting, comparing, strategizing. Even when you're trying to be present, there's a thought layer analyzing your presence. Am I being present correctly? Is this what presence feels like? Am I doing this right? But when expectation dissolves, thought's role fundamentally changes. It becomes residual rather than central. Thoughts still arise, memories, plans, observations, but they don't carry the same authority. They appear like clouds, passing through open sky. You notice them without needing to follow them, resist them, or make them mean something about your progress. This isn't achieved through meditation techniques or thought management strategies. It's not about becoming better at watching your thoughts or creating more space between thoughts. It happens naturally when the system no longer needs thought to maintain stability. When you're not seeking anything, thought doesn't need to guide you toward it. When you're not becoming anything, thought doesn't need to track your progress. What emerges is a different relationship with mental activity. The mind still generates ideas, still solves problems, still engages with concepts, but it's no longer the tyrant demanding constant attention. It becomes a tool you can pick up when needed and set down when you're finished. Most people spend their entire lives with the tool running continuously, whether they need it or not. This shift reveals something interesting about the nature of mental suffering. Most psychological pain isn't about what's happening. It's about the story you're telling about what's happening and what it means for your future. Someone criticizes you, and the actual words might sting for a moment. But the real suffering comes from the story. This means I'm not good enough. This means I'll never be successful. This means I'm fundamentally flawed and everyone can see it. When thought loses its central authority, these stories still appear, but they don't grab you the same way. You hear the narrative starting up. This is a disaster. This changes everything. And you recognize it as just another thought pattern, not an objective assessment of reality. The criticism still happened, but it's just data, not a referendum on your worth. This is radically different from trying to think more positively. Positive thinking still operates within the framework of thought as authority, You're just trying to choose better thoughts. What I'm describing is thought losing its authority altogether. You're not arguing with negative thoughts or replacing them with positive ones. You're recognizing that all thoughts, positive or negative, are just movements in consciousness, not directives you must obey. Now, what we're exploring here, this dissolution of expectation and the field response it creates, this is what I call moving from seeking to being, from the hunger signal to the satisfaction frequency. And while this video illuminates one particular threshold, the complete framework of how consciousness itself broadcasts and receives, how you shift from unconscious transmission to becoming the field itself, that's what I've mapped out across 9 master frequencies in my book. Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. If you're feeling this recognition move through you, if you're ready to understand the full architecture of how your consciousness shapes reality at the quantum level, you'll find the complete system there. Step-by-step practices, the ascending currents, the transmission codes that take you from manifestation to embodiment. It's linked in the pinned comment below. The quantum field responds to this shift in ways that seem subtle at first, but compound over time. When you're in the seeking state, you're constantly broadcasting a signal of incompleteness. Every desire, every expectation, every attempt to manifest or attract or create, all of it carries the energetic signature of, I am not enough as I am. Reality is not sufficient as it is. The field reads that signature and reflects it back to you, not as punishment, not as a test, but as perfect mirroring. You experience resistance because you're internally resisting. You encounter obstacles because you're oriented toward obstacles. You feel incomplete because your entire perceptual system is organized around incompleteness. But when expectation dissolves, your signal changes. You're no longer broadcasting lack. You're no longer asking reality to fill a void or complete a story. You're simply present with what is as it is, without needing it to be anything else. And the field responds to that presence. Situations that used to require effort begin resolving themselves. Not because you're manifesting better, but because you're no longer creating the resistance that made effort necessary. Conversations flow without escalation because you're not internally defending a position. Decisions clarify without deliberation because you're not weighing everything against some imagined ideal outcome. Synchronicities appear not because you're more aligned with the universe, but because you're no longer filtering reality through the lens of what you think should happen. This is where people get confused about manifestation teachings. They're taught that if they just want something correctly, if they visualize clearly enough, feel the emotion strongly enough, release resistance properly enough, they'll attract what they desire. But this entire framework assumes you're incomplete, and reality exists to complete you. What I'm describing is different. This isn't about attracting what you want. This is what happens when wanting itself loses its grip. When you're no longer divided between what is and what should be, reality stops showing up as something to overcome. It becomes something to participate in. And in that participation, movement happens naturally. Not because you're trying to make it happen, but because you're no longer in your own way. There's a specific way the nervous system recalibrates when you stop living in expectation. For years, maybe your entire life, your autonomic nervous system has been slightly tilted toward activation. Not full fight or flight, but a low-grade readiness. Your system learned early that staying alert keeps you safe, that anticipating problems helps you avoid them, that maintaining vigilance is responsible. This created a baseline of tension that you stopped noticing. Your shoulders naturally rise toward your ears. Your jaw stays slightly clenched. Your stomach holds a subtle tightness. Your breathing stays shallow and high in your chest. Your heart rate maintains a pace slightly elevated from true rest. None of it dramatic enough to seem like a problem, but all of it requiring energy to maintain. When expectation dissolves, the nervous system receives a signal it's been waiting for your entire life. It's safe to stand down. Not because all threats have disappeared, but because the internal threat detector, the part that's always scanning for what might go wrong, what you need to prepare for, what you should be doing differently, that threat detector powers down. The body responds before the mind even registers the change. Your breathing deepens automatically. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. Tension patterns you've held for decades begin unwinding in waves. Sometimes this releases as yawning, sometimes as spontaneous tears, sometimes as trembling or shaking. The system is literally discharging stored activation it no longer needs. Sleep changes. Instead of the mind running through tomorrow's to-do list or replaying today's conversations, you simply become tired and sleep comes. Instead of waking multiple times per night with an unnamed anxiety, you sleep more continuously. Instead of waking feeling like you've been working all night, you wake actually rested. Digestion improves because the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode, can finally do its job without constant interruption from the stress response. Your immune function strengthens because your system isn't burning resources on perpetual vigilance. Even your posture changes, becoming more naturally aligned because you're not bracing against imagined futures. This isn't relaxation as a practice you do. This is what happens when your system no longer has a reason to stay mobilized. When there's nowhere to get to, nothing to become, no perpetual preparation required, the body naturally settles into its optimal state. Not through effort, but through the absence of the effort that was keeping it activated. Along with this internal settling, your experience of time reorganizes. In the seeking state, time feels scarce. There's always the sense you're running out of it. You should be further along by now. You're behind where you wanted to be. The clock is ticking, and you haven't achieved what you set out to achieve. This creates chronic urgency. Even in moments of rest, there's a background anxiety about time being wasted. Even in moments of joy, there's awareness that this moment is temporary, and you need to extract maximum value from it before it passes. But when expectation dissolves, time releases its pressure. Waiting stops feeling like delay. Pauses stop feeling like gaps that need to be filled. The present moment stops being evaluated by what it might lead to. There's nowhere to get to, which means wherever you are is sufficient. This doesn't make you complacent or passive. You still engage with goals, still meet responsibilities, still move through your days with intention. But none of it carries that desperate edge. None of it comes with the internal narrative that your worth is determined by what you accomplish or how quickly you accomplish it. Future events stop rehearsing themselves in your awareness. You don't mentally prepare for conversations that haven't happened. You don't run through scenarios trying to control outcomes that haven't arrived. When something needs attention, you give it attention. Until then, you're here, fully, without part of you leaning into what's next. This creates a spaciousness that people often mistake for emptiness, but it's not empty, it's unburdened. There's a fullness to the present moment when you're not constantly referencing it against the past or projecting it into the future. Colors become more vivid. sounds become clearer. The texture of direct experience reveals itself when you're not filtering everything through the question of what it means for your progress. Time itself seems to expand. Not in clock terms, hours still pass at the same rate, but in experiential terms. When you're fully present, a single hour can feel rich and complete rather than rushed and insufficient. When you're not dividing your attention between what's happening and what should happen next, each moment has room to breathe. This is the practical magic of released expectation. You're not accessing some mystical state. You're simply experiencing reality without the constant overlay of judgment about whether this moment is good enough, productive enough, meaningful enough. And when you remove that overlay, what remains is startlingly sufficient. Drop one word in the comments that captures the energy you're choosing to embody from this point forward. Not what you think you should embody, not what sounds spiritual, but the actual frequency you feel moving through you as you absorb this transmission. Let that word be your energetic signature to the field. Let it mark the moment you stopped waiting for permission to simply be. Your identity structure simplifies in this space. All the stories you've been carrying about who you are, where you came from, what you're meant to do, they don't disappear, but they lose their heaviness. You no longer need to defend your narrative to yourself or others. You no longer need to make sure your actions align with some image you're maintaining. This shows up in practical ways. You speak more plainly. There's less performance in your communication. You don't need to impress or convince or manage how you're understood. You say what's true and let it land however it lands. This isn't rudeness. It's clarity without the need for strategic positioning. You react less defensively when challenged because your sense of self isn't fragile. Criticism might be useful feedback or it might not, but either way, it doesn't threaten who you are. You don't take things personally because there's no longer an elaborate self-concept that needs protecting. People often find this disconcerting. They're used to interacting with others who are performing some version of themselves, managing impressions, negotiating for validation. When they encounter someone who's not doing that, they don't know how to read it. They might interpret it as coldness or detachment. But it's neither. It's precision without pretense. You become more honest, not because you're trying to practice radical honesty as a spiritual virtue, but because the effort required to maintain facades exceeds the value they provide. Lying, even small social lies, creates internal friction when you're no longer oriented toward managing outcomes. Truth becomes the path of least resistance. This doesn't make you socially awkward or inappropriately blunt. You still navigate context. You still consider impact. But you're no longer contorting yourself to fit expectations that don't serve anyone. You show up as you are and trust that's sufficient. And here's what's remarkable. It usually is. The interesting thing about this simplified identity is that it doesn't make you less capable. If anything, it makes you more effective. Because you're not wasting energy maintaining an image or defending a position, you have more resources available for actual engagement. Your attention becomes clearer. Your responses become more appropriate. Your creativity flows more naturally because it's not being filtered through the question of whether it makes you look good. You'll notice that comparison stops being interesting. Not because you've transcended ego or achieved some enlightened state, but because the framework that made comparison relevant has dissolved. You're not better than anyone, not worse than anyone, not trying to position yourself anywhere in a hierarchy. You're just here, doing what you do, without needing it to mean anything about your relative worth. This extends to how you relate to your own past. Those old stories about your traumas, your achievements, your defining moments, they become just stories. Not unimportant, not negated, but no longer the primary lens through which you understand yourself. You can acknowledge your history without being defined by it. You can learn from your past without being imprisoned by it. What settles into place is a functionality that doesn't announce itself. Days unfold without requiring commentary. You wake up, move through your responsibilities, engage with what's present, rest when rest is needed. There's no internal narrator making it significant. No voice tracking whether you're doing it right. No measurement system evaluating your performance. This can feel anticlimactic to a system that was trained to recognize achievement through intensity. Where's the peak experience? Where's the breakthrough moment? Where's the dramatic transformation that confirms you've arrived? But those very questions reveal the seeking structure still operating. This space doesn't deliver peak experiences because it's not oriented toward peaks. It doesn't offer dramatic transformations because it recognizes that what you already are doesn't need transforming. It doesn't confirm arrival because arrival was only ever necessary in a framework where you believed you'd left somewhere. Responsibilities get met without internal resistance, not because you've developed better discipline, but because resistance itself was a product of the divided state. The part of you that wanted to do something else fighting with the part doing what needed doing. When that division dissolves, action becomes simpler. You do what's required without the internal negotiation about whether you want to do it. Enjoyment arises without pursuit. You're not constantly seeking the next pleasurable experience. You're not scanning for ways to optimize your happiness. Joy appears naturally in gaps you weren't even looking to fill. A moment of sunlight, a simple conversation, the taste of water when you're actually thirsty. These become sufficient without needing to be amplified or extended or captured for later. Difficulty still appears. Life doesn't become frictionless, but it no longer becomes identity. A challenge is just a challenge. A problem is just a problem. You engage with it without making it mean something about your worth or your progress or your spiritual development. You solve what can be solved and accept what can't be without the drama of resistance. The absence of drama is often mistaken for absence of life. People think if you're not excited about things, you must be depressed. If you're not pursuing goals intensely, you must have given up. But this isn't depression, and it's not resignation. It's what stability actually feels like when you're not addicted to the adrenaline of constant becoming. There's a groundedness that emerges here that's different from any kind of grounding practice. You're not trying to get grounded. You're not doing techniques to feel more embodied. You simply are embodied because there's nowhere else to be. The tendency to dissociate into thought, to escape into fantasy, to avoid the present through planning or reminiscing, all of that loses its appeal when the present stops feeling insufficient. Your relationship with pleasure changes too. In the seeking state, pleasure often becomes another thing to optimize. You're chasing peak experiences, trying to maximize enjoyment, turning even relaxation into a project. But when expectation dissolves, pleasure becomes simpler. Food tastes better because you're actually tasting it rather than thinking about it. Music moves you more deeply because you're listening rather than using it as background noise while you think about something else. Physical sensation becomes more vivid because you're present in your body rather than observing it from a distance. Take a moment in the comments and share. What's one expectation you've been carrying that you're now ready to release? Or describe the moment you first recognized the seeking pattern in yourself. Your words create ripples in the field, and they might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. This extends to your creative expression, if that's part of your life. The paralysis that comes from perfectionism dissolves because you're no longer creating to prove something or become someone. You create because the creation wants to happen. You share it or you don't, and neither choice carries heavy significance. The work becomes play again, not in the sense of being frivolous, but in the sense of being intrinsically motivated rather than outcome dependent. Your relationships transform, sometimes subtly and sometimes dramatically. People who were drawn to you when you were performing a certain identity may drift away. This isn't personal. They're relating to a version of you that no longer exists. And people who resonate with your actual presence rather than your performance start appearing. These relationships feel easier, more natural, less effortful to maintain. You stop needing validation from others because you're no longer trying to validate yourself through external feedback. Compliments are nice but not necessary. Criticism is information but not devastating. You can appreciate others' perspectives without needing them to define your reality. This creates a stability in relationship that allows for genuine intimacy rather than strategic connection. Integration happens here without announcement. Experiences occur and resolve without needing to be processed, interpreted, or turned into lessons. Emotions arise and pass without leaving residue that needs clearing. The system handles reality directly instead of through layers of meaning-making. You might notice you stop journaling about your insights, not because you don't have insights, but because insights no longer feel like possessions that need recording. You might stop tracking your mood or monitoring your energy, not because you're bypassing your internal experience, but because your internal experience no longer requires that level of management. Life becomes straightforward in a way that's hard to describe to someone still caught in complexity. Not simple in the sense of easy, but uncomplicated, direct. You interact with what's actually in front of you instead of with your interpretations, expectations, and projections about what's in front of you. The field responds to this directness with its own form of directness. Resources appear when needed. Solutions emerge without forced problem solving. The right people show up at the right times. This isn't magic. It's what happens when you're no longer creating static interference with your constant mental noise about how things should be different. Subscribe not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent with this frequency we're establishing together. This isn't about accumulating more spiritual knowledge. This is about anchoring into the remembrance that you don't need to become anything you're not already. The more of us who stop performing for an imaginary audience, the more the collective field reflects that truth back to itself. We're not building a community of seekers. We're gathering as those who've recognized that seeking was only ever pointing to what was already here. There's a deepening that happens over time in this space that's worth mentioning. This isn't a static state you arrive at and then maintain. It's more like a continuous settling. Each day, each week, each month, the system relaxes a little more deeply into sufficiency. Layers of old conditioning surface and dissolve without you needing to work on them. Patterns that have been running your entire life simply stop running. This can look like sudden changes in long-standing preferences. Foods you've always loved suddenly don't appeal. Habits you've maintained for years just drop away. Relationships that seemed essential reveal themselves as optional. None of this happens through willpower or decision-making. It happens organically as your system recalibrates around presence rather than pursuit. You might find yourself drawn to different environments. Places that used to feel stimulating now feel overwhelming. Spaces that used to feel boring now feel nourishing. Your sensitivity to energy, both in people and places, often increases, not because you're developing psychic abilities, but because you're no longer filtering everything through your own mental noise. There's also a natural discernment that develops. You become better at recognizing what's actually true versus what you've been conditioned to believe is true. You can feel the difference between guidance that comes from presence and advice that comes from someone else's seeking state. You recognize when you're being sold a solution to a problem you don't actually have. This doesn't make you cynical or closed off. If anything, it makes you more open because you're not constantly defending yourself against manipulation. You can hear people's opinions without taking them as directives. You can consider perspectives without feeling obligated to adopt them. You can engage with ideas while remaining rooted in your own direct experience. The dissolution of seeking doesn't mean you stop growing or evolving. It means growth happens naturally rather than through forced development. You learn because you're curious, not because you're trying to fix yourself. You change because life asks you to adapt, not because you're trying to become someone better. Evolution continues, but without the underlying assumption that who you are right now is insufficient. Consider returning to this video tomorrow morning, or sharing it with someone who's been trapped in the cycle of constant self-improvement. When you share these quantum principles, you're not just passing along information. You're activating a frequency in another consciousness that reinforces your own embodiment of these truths. The act of sharing creates a harmonic resonance that accelerates both your integration and theirs, a quantum ripple that the field recognizes and amplifies. There's nothing to instruct from this point, no practice to implement, no technique to master. If you're reading this and it's landing somewhere beneath thought, then you're already in the space I'm describing. The recognition itself is the thing. Not what you do with the recognition, just the recognition. You don't need to remember this video. You don't need to take notes or implement teachings. The transmission has already happened if it was going to happen. What remains doesn't require effort to maintain. It doesn't need protection. It doesn't need reinforcement. It's here because it's no longer trying to be here. The movement that once organized your entire perception around arrival has completed its function. What you're left with isn't emptiness, it's sufficiency. Not as a feeling you need to maintain, but as the baseline reality that's been present all along, waiting for the seeking to exhaust itself so it could be noticed. And from here, nothing needs to be done. Not because you've given up, but because the doing was only ever compensating for a lack that wasn't actually real. You are not incomplete. Reality is not insufficient. The phase is complete not because it reached completion, but because it was never incomplete to begin with. Nothing needs to be carried forward from this moment. You are already where you've been trying to get to, and you always have been. Now, if you're wondering how to actually speak to yourself in a way that reinforces this shift rather than recreating the old seeking patterns, that's exactly what we explore next. The language you use internally creates your reality instantly. Most people unknowingly program limitation with every internal conversation. Understanding how to align your self-talk with this frequency of sufficiency rather than lack transforms everything. Watch that next.